Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my must-start and my must-avoid wide receivers of week number 1 of the 2021 fantasy football season. Inside today's video, I will begin with talking about a bunch of players that I believe to be must-starts based upon their matchup in week number 1, and then halfway through the video, we're going to switch to the must-sit players that I believe do not have the greatest of matchups and a lot of other things going up against them so that they will not have a great week in week number 1 of the 2021 fantasy football season. But before we get into the breakdown of these wide receivers, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying it, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, me and the guys on the Awesemo fantasy football YouTube channel put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 fantasy football championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure you hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. If you guys have Twitter also and would like to follow me, I tweet about fantasy football. Please make sure to follow me at NotoriousFNTSY. I always tweet about the NFL breaking news. Like, for instance, Gus Edwards just ended up getting hurt before I recorded this. I know this has nothing to do with the wide receivers in this video, but if Tyson Williams is still available in your league, to me, he would be the pickup over Le'Veon Bell. So without further ado, let's get into the video. We begin with the must-starts. My first must-start of week number 1 is T. Higgins, wide receiver of the Cincinnati Bengals, going up against the Minnesota Vikings in this matchup. This is one of the marquee matchups I've been talking about on this channel for the last couple of days in my must-start, must-sit videos, because I believe that the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Minnesota Vikings is going to be an ultra high scoring matchup, a big back and forth affair between these two teams, with Ja'Marr Chase's struggles in the offseason, with him struggling in training camp. I mean, it just came out today that Ja'Marr Chase is saying that it's hard to see the football because it doesn't have the white stripes on it like in NCAA college football. So the ball, despite it being bigger, he can't see it. Isn't that like the funniest excuse you've ever heard? I don't even know if that's true or not, but he did say it. So he is making an excuse that he can't see the ball correctly. Like, what is happening, Ja'Marr Chase? You were drafted to be the #1 wide receiver here in Cincinnati, and it appears that you're not going to be able to do that, at least early on in the season, which gives me even more confidence. I am oozing confidence right now in T. Higgins for week number 1. This is going to be a very pass-heavy attack for the Cincinnati Bengals, as I believe they're going to have to be fighting back and forth with the Minnesota Vikings. And I think that if they're able to go shot for shot with each other, then T. Higgins is going to end up having a very positive game script for success in week number 1 up against the Vikings. Next up, we have Tampa Bay wide receiver who's playing tonight, Antonio Brown, going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, on a majority of the teams, when you see the number 3 target on the team, the player who's perceived to be the 3rd target on the team, you don't get excited at all. But in the case of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Antonio Brown is technically their 3rd option behind Mike Evans, behind Chris Godwin. This is the perfect situation to succeed for Antonio Brown. We saw down the stretch last season, it wasn't that Chris Godwin and Mike Evans were overpowering him in targets. They were seeing very similar targets game in and game out. And in this matchup up against the Dallas Cowboys, who have one of the worst defenses in the NFL, Tampa Bay Tom Brady should be easily able to pick them apart. I talked about Tom Brady as a must-start quarterback for the week, and I believe Antonio Brown is a must-start wide receiver. Now, obviously, if you have Evans, if you have Godwin, they're must-starts as well, but that's a little bit more obvious, right? You drafted those guys in the 3rd or 4th round. You might have waited until the 7th or 8th round to get Antonio Brown. And in this matchup up against the Cowboys, I see really no way that he could end up faltering in this matchup. Plus, Dallas has good enough offense to fight back into this game, which will keep Tom Brady throwing later on into the game, which gives us even more opportunity for Antonio Brown to get the ball. But before we get on in to the next must-start player, I would like to let you guys have a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at Yahoo. You guys have probably played in a Yahoo Fantasy Football League before, but if you haven't tried out their new best ball, then you are missing out. With leagues ranging from free to $500, Yahoo has best ball leagues for every type of player. Use our Awesemo Fantasy Football Draft Kit with your Yahoo best ball entries to give you guys the best chance to win. Head over after you're done watching this video and get started drafting a team within minutes. Again, that is Yahoo best ball. Back into it. My 3rd must-start wide receiver of today's video is DEEBO Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers, going up against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Now, a lot of people are really pumping up the chest of Brandon Ayuk. Now, Brandon Ayuk did end up getting hurt, and there's concerns with a hamstring injury. Now, he probably is going to play, which in my opinion makes no sense. This is a matchup up against the Lions. The Lions are terrible. The Lions are going to get destroyed in this game. So why would you risk the health of his hamstring? Why would you risk the health of your technical #1 wide receiver in San Francisco? Why are you going to waste that in a game that you know you're more than likely to win? With that said, I highly expect Ayuk to play. But even with Ayuk on the field, DEEBO Samuel could be a top-end fantasy football option in this matchup. You saw when DEEBO was on the field with Ayuk, DEEBO was still able to put up solid numbers. But even with all of these high-end options surrounding DEEBO Samuel, I don't really see too much of a way that the San Francisco 49ers don't just beat down on the Lions, and that all of these guys could be very useful this week, especially DEEBO Samuel, who, like I said at the beginning, who's kind of getting brushed under the rug for Brandon Ayuk. Next up, our final must-start player is DJ Moore of the Carolina Panthers going up against the New York Jets. Now, one of my favorite narratives in the NFL, in fantasy football, is the narrative of a revenge game. I love the revenge game, and a lot of people love it too this week up against the New York Jets for Mr. Mono Man Sam Darnold. But then the other people, they're really starting to put together these stacks of Robbie Anderson and Mr. Sam Darnold. And they're thinking, this is the double revenge game. This is something you barely ever see. Robbie Anderson's going to have an amazing game against the Jets. I believe he could. But I think DJ Moore is the clear #1 target here in Carolina. I think DJ Moore is finally looking to put together that season that he's wanted his whole career, where he gets the 1,000+ yards, but he doesn't just score 4 or 5 touchdowns. He scores 9, 10, 11, 12 touchdowns on the season, and then he could be a legitimate top 12 wide receiver week in and week out for fantasy football. So in the case of a matchup up against the Jets, it should be a no-brainer to throw DJ Moore into your lineup with Sam Darnold looking to beat down on the New York Jets. Now onto the must-sit section of the video, but before we hear about my must-sit wide receivers, I would like to let you guys know that football is finally back, and we have a deal to get you started with NFL DFS. Go to our Awesemo Plus NFL Express Weekly Pass for only $1 with promo code DAK. Again, promo code DAK, just like Dak Prescott. Our Express Pass is the best way to introduce yourself to Awesemo Plus NFL, which is more expansive than ever. Included is our access to our player and ownership rankings, our expert Slack chat, and everything we have to offer for showdown and single game contests, which includes our player projections, ownership projections, and our top plays. New this year to the package is our season-long fantasy football coverage, as well as projected ownership and optimal lineup possibilities for tiers contests on DraftKings. That's promo code DAK to get access to our highest value NFL Express Weekly Pass ever for just $1. You can find the link to the promo pinned in our YouTube chat or in the video of this description down below. This offer is valid through Monday, September 13th. Again, promo code DAK. Click the link down below in the description. Back into the video, we start with our first must-sit player. We just talked about Ja'Marr Chase as the reason that I believe that Mr. T. Higgins is going to be a must-start player. For some reason, for some absurd fucking reason, Ja'Marr Chase is talking about how he cannot see the football. What is he, Jameis Winston? Does he need some LASIK eye surgery? I don't get it. I do not get it, Ja'Marr. I don't get it. The rust is clearly playing a huge factor here because he hasn't played football, real football, since 2019 in college with the Tigers. This is a great matchup for Ja'Marr Chase to succeed, but I'd rather just wait. Maybe he has a great game. Maybe we're all just looking too deep into this. We're looking too deep into the fact that he looked terrible in preseason. We're looking too deep into the fact that he has not looked good in training camp, all these things. Maybe we're looking too far in with the microscope. But when I'm looking into this, I just see a situation where you need to be cautious. And maybe it takes a couple weeks into the season for Ja'Marr Chase to really spark it up, for him to really get back to being his old self. And I believe that will happen at some point in the season. I believe the rust will fall off of Ja'Marr Chase. But right now, I think it is crazy to want to start Ja'Marr Chase this week. Next up, we have Kenny Golladay, wide receiver of the New York Football Giants, going up against the Denver Broncos. Kenny Golladay has missed a majority of August with a hamstring injury, which normally, with the receiver, with the skill set of Kenny Golladay, one of the, in my opinion, better receivers in the NFL, it doesn't matter. Normally, the case is who gives a fuck. But this is the first year of Kenny Golladay in New York with the Giants. This is his first year with Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones isn't he's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not some elite quarterback who's going to be able to just, you know, Kenny Galladay's there. Now I know I can throw it right to him, right? It's easy. No, that's not what's going to happen. It's going to take some while to get some chemistry. He's on a team that's going to be bad. This is a bad matchup. This just screams stay away from Kenny Golladay in this matchup, so I'm definitely not looking to be starting him this week with the injury issues, with him not being able to practice, with the chemistry issues with Daniel Jones, and this matchup being very, very tough for Kenny Golladay up against the Broncos. Next up, we have a wide receiver that actually has a good matchup, but I want to see it with my own eyes before I believe that Odell Beckham Jr. of the Cleveland Browns is worthy of a start. This matchup up against the Chiefs is great because it's going to cause the Browns to have to throw the football. But throughout Beckham's tenure in Cleveland, he hasn't been that good. He hasn't been reliable. So I want to see it before I believe it. I want to see him play good. And if he does play good, if he plays like Odell from when he was on the Giants, if he's one of the elite wide receivers, if we see that spark in Odell, then I'm perfectly fine zipping my mouth and telling you guys to start him every week. I'm fine with changing my opinion, but my opinion on Odell Beckham Jr. right now is very negative. It's very negative, and it is going to take a solid game here up against the Chiefs for me to change my mind. Now, one of the most important things about week 1, week 2 of the fantasy football season early on every single year is not to overreact. It's not to go ahead and throw a fit if Odell has a terrible game here against the Chiefs. But what does happen, if that is to happen, is it gives me a little bit of confirmation bias that, hey, maybe Odell isn't that guy, just like I believed. And in week 2, if he doesn't play good again, then I continue to believe that. But don't completely overreact to week number 1. That is a very important thing. Week number 1 of the NFL season is always the most fluky week. A team that you think might be awful, might be terrible, might not even win a game, you might say. They may go out in week 1 and just smack a team. Last year, if you guys remember, the Jaguars in week 1 beat the Colts. They didn't win another game after that. So week number 1 is a little bit crazy. So please do not overreact to week number 1, but I am being very, very cautious with Odell Beckham Jr. Next up, we have the TikTok star himself, Juju Smith-Schuster of the Pittsburgh Steelers, going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. The Steelers added Juju Smith-Schuster in the NFL draft, so I feel as though they're going to look to try to maybe establish the run a little more. Now, it's going to be tough to do that because the offensive line here is not very good. It may honestly be worse than it was last season for James Conner. But the reason why they drafted Najee Harris is because he can do more with less, whereas James Conner needs a great offensive line to run wild. I believe that Juju Smith-Schuster is the odd man out here in Pittsburgh. I think that Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool are going to have excellent seasons this year. And I think that Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be left out. This is a very tough defensive matchup for Juju Smith-Schuster, as it is likely that he could draw one of Tre'Davious White or Levi Wallace, and they will end up locking him down. So in this matchup, I'm very nervous about Juju. Maybe, just like with Odell, I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is Juju from back in the day with Antonio Brown. He's a great wide receiver. Maybe he is. But before I see it with my own eyes, I'm not going to believe it. And final player here, final must-sit, is DeVante Parker, wide receiver of the Miami Dolphins, going up against the New England Patriots. Now, this is not really a player that is super fantasy notable, but, at least in my opinion, but I see a lot of people drafting DeVante Parker in like the 9th, 10th, 11th round of drafts, and a lot of people will talk him up now because, hey, Nick, Will Fuller is suspended for week 1. It's going to be DeVante Parker's season in week number 1. Stephon Gilmore isn't there, but let me tell you, this is still a tough New England Patriots defense for the Miami Dolphins to face. This is a game with a very, very low over-under total, with it just being set at 43.5. I believe the way and the key to success for the Patriots is to rush the ball down the throat of the Dolphins, and I think the Dolphins' key to winning here is by not doing anything crazy with Tua, trying to establish the run, make some short throws, and I just feel like there's not going to be too much passing volume from Tua that is going to go DeVante Parker's way. And I don't really like DeVante Parker on the season, and this is a very tough matchup for him, even without Will Fuller in the lineup. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know down below in the comment section what you thought about these players. Do you agree with me, or are you against me? That's okay as well. I love you guys all so much. We have seen so much success recently on this YouTube channel. I want to personally thank everyone that watches the videos. Even if you don't like me, you watch for the other people that are on this channel. That's perfectly fine as well. It is what it is, but I appreciate you, even if you do not like me. So thank you so much for watching. I love you guys all. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day, and make sure that you stay safe. As always, goodbye.